everybody. We have a special guest today at Brain Fresh TV. Let us go here. Please introduce yourself. Tell us everything about you, or at least a few things. Right?
Sure. So my name is Sapna Shah-Hawk. I'm based here in Kansas in the Midwest, and I'm a practicing physician, internal medicine, practice in a rural setting, and I love it.
I love it. Gosh, how often do you hear that? She loves her job, right?
Right. It's taken me a few, moves here and there, in a sense that now I'm working part-time because I like too many things outside of medicine. So it allows me to balance who I am.
I love that. So you kind of figured out the priorities of what to put into your week.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about that process. How did you eliminate things or add things and find, this balance that's working for you now?
Sure. So a couple of major events. After I finished residency, I ended up here in rural Kansas, and it was great. Pick your term, right? Traditional or comprehensivist, where I would see patients in clinic Monday through Friday, and then admit my own consult in a rural hospital. And that was for about the first year and a half. When I was building a practice, it was great. But then as I started getting full, I found out, I can't see myself doing this at 40 or 50.
Yeah.
Right? And then we had to restructure some of the things. Family member had a major illness that really I had to step up to the plate, and I did, and we shifted more toward Wichita, which is my hometown. Still maintaining, part-time here, but went to another place in Wichita where I did all outpatient, no inpatient, and
Gotcha.
I really liked the Monday through Friday, no call, and I was able to spend time with my family, my kids, and explore more of my other interests. And then a big factor for me was my best friend from medical school and residency died by suicide in June of 2019. And at that point, you just think, what in the heck am I doing?
Right?
What the heck am I doing? Why am I working? Why am I working 6-7 days a week? Makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, to really focus on just other aspects of life, I took a position back in the original community in which I started, and it's part-time, outpatient only. They have a hospitalist group, and I think that's great. So it allows me to focus on outpatient and also my kids, my interests outside of medicine. And so that I can see myself doing this until 65, 70, whenever I need to take a step back further. But for me, this is sustainable.
Nice. Yeah. I'm so sorry about your friends. I'm so sorry. There's a day now, the suicide risk is so high for people in certain professions, and medicine is one of them.
Yeah.
And there's now a day, it was just happened, right? It was the National Day of Physician Suicide, and remembering that risk. And, I don't know, I feel like at times that, certain professions are so demanding that we have, I don't know what to call it, if we say unrealistic thinking or magical thinking about our just biologic needs, right? I don't know where that comes from. So some folks work, 12-hour shifts, I think, are long. But when people work, then what have you heard the longest shift? 36-hour shifts, or I don't. It's just, we know it's unhealthy. We know, when you're tired, that you're impaired, you're drunk. So I don't know. Where do you think that comes from? This, it's with the work demands and then our biologic needs, and not understanding that there's limitations.
I think it's the culture of medicine, right? I mean, the culture of medicine, at least that's what I can speak to, is a culture where there's hierarchy. And it's ingrained into us in medical school, residency, and then it's really hard to break that mold as an attending. And if you look at it, the fathers of medicine were doped up on cocaine.
Oops, whoops. Oh my gosh. Is that written in a book? Is there anywhere that we know that for sure? Basically, huh? Because they just work. Is that House of God? I mean, is that just?
I can't remember.
Stop.
I can't remember what the reference was, but I mean, they were taking a stimulant, and if you look at it, to keep up.
No, it's scary. It's scary because I even, the college kids think they have to do that as well. Like when exams come up, that's very scary, that people think. That's why I just wish that, and that's one of my goals with Brain Crush, and I know your goal with your work that we'll get into, is that I just want to remind people that we are this biologic system that has needs. I like to think of the neurobiology, or what the brain needs.
Right.
It's so powerful. It's like a supercomputer, but it also needs things. It's like busy 24/7. I always say it's like a busy parent, so it's already busy. It's managing our whole body. It's managing our heart and our breathing, and it's already doing a lot of things.
Right.
So if you're going to ask more of it, you have to give it more, Yes. So that's why I think like in college, if they're going through exams, they have to give themselves more rather than less. But what I see is they just stay up all night and they eat junk. And I mean, what can we tell people? How can we remind people, or go ahead, take the floor. Please remind people that we have biologic needs.
Yeah. So I've kind of taken the scenic route through life. So I would say, there's this expectation where you have to do everything in 4 years for college. And my question is, besides tuition and loans, why? Why do we have to cram everything into 4 years? Why do you have to take summer school? Why do you have to carry those 18, 20 hours? I've done that. And you know what? I've dropped classes. Or if I absolutely did not like what I was doing, actually started out as an engineer major, I dropped my classes because I got to the point where I realized I didn't care.
Gotcha.
And so don't be afraid to do that. Take the scenic route.
And enjoy the journey, huh?
Enjoy the journey.
So give us some other examples of how you have done that, or how you've helped other people take the scenic route. That's a great way to say it. Yeah.
Sure. If it's not true to your authentic self, don't do it. That's number one. And number two, one thing that, and I can thank my mom for this, she's a retired teacher. For every science course you take, if you take 2 science courses, make sure to take something that you enjoy that is maybe a little bit, I'm not going to say less demanding, because I think the liberal arts are equally as demanding, but in a different way. But maybe take something that you enjoy that would be more, bring out your creative side. Or make sure that if you're taking 15 hours of intense course, that maybe ask around, what are the professors like, who are the best ones to take it from, that are going to actually, if you need help, are going to be present and not belittle you when you ask a question. I think that's really important. And then schedule some workout time, or schedule some goof off time. I mean, that's really important.
That is important. And what does your goof off time look like these days with where you are in life?
Well, now that the weather's cooling off, it looks a little bit more like fishing or kayaking or bike riding.
Nice. Yeah.
When it gets cooler, we do have a home gym, and with the kids, put on Disney music or something else and just have a dance party in the living room. Yeah, they love that. It's fun.
That's so cute. Yeah, that's awesome. That's fun. I've been doing that on Fridays, and I was like, no videos. But my kids are older, so my youngest is a senior in high school. So on Fridays, I just like to dance a little. Like I've been like, okay, I'm going to learn line dancing or something. So we're going to Puerto Rico next year. So I was like, let's learn like Puerto Rican dance. So we've been like looking up dances from Puerto Rico. So we're like
That'll be a lot of fun.
So you're like, okay, yeah, I just need to like get the week out, like wiggle it out a little bit, on Fridays. I love that goof off time and enjoy the journey. I think that's been true for me too. And I think that's a bonus of working in medicine is, from the very beginning, if you work in medicine, you see people whose lives have changed without, without a warning, or somebody gets a chronic disease or something, like you're like dealing with a suicide or severe depression, like things happen and people are challenged. And right away in medicine, we're on a journey with those folks. That's just like, I've been in medicine now 30 years, but I feel like that is a gift that medicine has given me, that I need to enjoy the journey, because I don't know how long the journey is. And I don't want to wait. I see a lot of people like, I'm going to get so fit when I'm retired. Like, I'm going to do all this. I'm going to do art when I retire. I'm going to learn a new language when I retire. And I would challenge you and say, like, today's the day, like, to add something in, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you also tell us something about the Worthy Physician and your work in that area. I would like to learn something more about that.
Sure. So also on my days off, goof off time can also be working on my podcast or, listening to others. And the reason why I started the Worthy Physician podcast is burnout and physician suicide, right? Losing my best friend, the way, if it were a car crash, that would be something I could wrap my head around. And when this individual took her life, it just shook my world, as it did many. And the question is, how does someone get to that point? How does someone get to that point? And before I launched the Worthy Physician, I really spent about a year and a half thinking about it, talking to others. And the reason why I started the podcast was to start looking at different aspects of burnout, because we're all at risk with this crazy culture in medicine and even in the corporate world, where we need to be perfect all the time, and we need to say yes all the time, and we need to not complain. We have to fit a certain mold, and that just does not jive with me currently, nor has it ever really. And we have to expand those play boxes. We have to expand the fact that we need sleep. Now, I'm the wrong person to ask about that because I have insomnia, but outside of that, I try to make sure all my other needs are met. And that is so important to well-being. The same advice that we give our patients, the same advice that we hear from wellness officers, we need to take care of ourselves, but we also need to have a culture that represents that. Whereas in medicine and corporate America, we do not. So with Worthy Physician, I talk to other physicians and other healthcare workers or other individuals that have expertise that can bring in points. And hey, self-care is important. Knowing where you are in life, where you are as far as aligning with your authentic self. Now, how do physicians grieve? Other physicians have talked about their journey of burnout, and I think it gives power to the physician or to the listener, because this is something that we don't talk about. We don't talk about our feelings. We don't talk about feeling lost, because it's demonized as looking weak or less than what a physician should be, and that's just not true. I think we have to acknowledge our humanity, and so that's what I do with my podcast.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thank you for that work. That's important. And I think, and I see in the residents, sometimes they're apologizing when they're talking about some of this, it's just their neurobiology, that they're tired or they're sick or they're sad or, I remember one morning we came in and, the chief resident said, we lost 3 people last night. And one resident, one of the residents was like the neuro resident, she was doing an amazing job. And most of them were her patients, because we kept giving her all the ICU patients. And and we all just sat there. So I think I said, okay, let's take a minute. I mean, what do you suggest in those moments Like, I said, no, let's just stop for a minute and just acknowledge these are people and families, because you have to keep going because you have a long list of things to do that day. But I think some small things that don't take a long time to acknowledge emotions are in order, with what, residents or anyone working in, any human, you have feelings.
Right.
And it's okay. I just see this apologizing for the humanistic qualities that makes us wonderful humans. Like, that's why we are humans. We have a lot of qualities and we have feelings, and our feelings will change our perceptions and our ability to interact with folks. So yeah, what would you suggest, or, what have you heard, maybe what you do personally, or what would you heard from your guest in that situation? Because I feel like that's a teachable moment right there for the residents.
Sure. What I can tell you is that I actually have I actually did an episode on how do physicians grieve.
Okay,
right?
Good. Yeah. So
and
share those.
Sure. And I talked with Anne-Marie Zenzel, who's a minister. Sorry, not a minister. A chaplain, Yale trained, and hospice. She was a hospice chaplain.
Okay.
And, she gave us a lot of good tips. And one thing she said is, feel your feelings and label them. One thing that I do here is if I'm sad, I'll cry with my patients, because I can't always keep a straight face when I'm breaking bad news, especially when these are some patients I've known for many years. I would say, if you feel like crying in front of your patient because you are human and you feel for them, do it. I do not think it is unprofessional. I think you bringing your human side to that exam room and showing them that you are as vulnerable as they are and that you see them as a person will only strengthen that relationship. And sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think if it's in the hospital, having a debriefing session after a bad code, all codes are bad, especially when they don't come back, or after losing a patient, have a debriefing. I think that that's really important, because it's not, most of the time, it's not what you didn't do. It's to process the loss as a physician, as a person, but first and foremost as a person, right?
Yeah, I remember the one time a patient passed away, and I think I was an intern. So this is like 30 years ago. I could remember it. It was yesterday.
Yeah.
Because the chaplain was there, or had just come, and he said, "Do you want to hold hands and pray with the family?" And I was starting to leave. Like, I didn't think that was our role as an intern or a resident. And he said, "No, would you like to?" And I'm like, I didn't, and I thought, well, this isn't my place. It's their family member. And it was so meaningful. I'll just get tears thinking about it, and I still think about that moment a lot. And I didn't do that every time, but I could see the value, just like we're with the family. We didn't know them, of course, at the level of they did, but we're here at this moment. Let's just honor the person and the family. And it was very beautiful. And memorable. I mean, it's 30 years ago, and I still think of that. And I wonder if the residents, maybe I'll ask the residents if they've ever done that. Because I thought it was really important. It just really helped me to honor that life, that person's life. And I obviously didn't know her well. I think I only knew her for a few days. But I was able to also honor her life. And I think that's really special, that chaplain welcomed us into that. And I'm grateful for that experience. So I know that there's a lot of movement into educating the residents and giving them words and, like you said, time to debrief. And, not just the residents, but all the healthcare workers.
Sure.
And we've seen this, and unfortunately in other tragedies and things, that there's take time, whatever you need, to debrief, but you're affected because you're present. I didn't, I was just new to the whole situation. And so it was nice that was modeled for me. And I appreciate that, from that team, especially that chaplain.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a gift, for me. And just to show the family. I just remember it was a son, it was his mom and adult son, I don't know what he thought, but I would think if it was me and the healthcare workers grabbed my hand, if it was my mom, that would be really meaningful.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you're talking about this, and I'm glad to know about that podcast episode. I'll share that. I'll put it in the notes, and also, to let my residents know about that, because I think just reinforcing the language, I feel like it's kind of a new language. It's almost like learning a new language, that it's okay to say this, it's okay to feel this, it's okay to use this language. And I always have found hospice, from anywhere from the home health aides to the nurses to the docs, everything in between, the hospice team has been really helpful to me to kind of learn that language.
Yes.
So we've heard a lot of important things, so we said, enjoy the journey. That's one of your lessons.
Yes.
Schedule goof off time. That's important stuff.
Yes.
It might look different times of the year. That's okay. And then honor these these learning moments or these emotional times in our life, and just honor the emotions that you're feeling. And then should people build a support team around there? Like, how do you, if you're kind of new to talking about emotions, what are some resources beyond your podcast, The Worthy Physician? I'll put the list, but
sure.
What are some, I don't know, I guess if someone's new at this, like how do they feel confident, or just practice, like any new skill, to practice it?
Sure. I think that number one, the fact that there are more and more resources out there for physicians, in particular, and this is what I know of, that are feeling burned out. That should be kind of a yellow light, right? So if you don't get comfortable about talking about it now, it's going to catch up with you. But to answer your question, I would say, talk to somebody that you feel comfortable with. Somebody that you trust, whether it's a family member, a friend, a colleague. And the reason why I list colleague as third is sometimes it is difficult to go to another physician and say, hey, you know what, I'm having a really bad day. Again, just because of the culture, but the culture is changing. Mm-hmm. But you really want somebody that's going to be objective. And if you are concerned about starting to talk about that, start by talking to your dog or cat. I think they're great listeners.
They're great listeners.
As funny as it sounds, they're going to look at you and not be judgmental, right? Positive self-talk in the mirror is really important. And again, I'm one that I believe in therapy. And of course, Kansas is a state where we've changed the wording on the license questions at the end of the year.
Nice. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. That's good. So that's a reference to like some professionals. If you say you're working with a mental health team, they ask you on your license, on your state license. That's sometimes for some physicians. That's how each state has its own law. That's what, Dr. Shaw is referring to. So that's great, because if you have a mental health challenge, we want you to get help.
Right.
And and that's so it shouldn't be a barrier, and
no.
Thank goodness. Yeah. Good.
And
thank you.
So they've changed the question to, do you have this? Instead it reads something like, does it prevent you from practicing medicine?
Okay.
Does it hinder your practice of medicine?
Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
Seek therapy, seek a coach. There are so many opportunities. And if you want to talk to somebody, there are references, or there are places online where, you can have that physician to physician talk, and these are volunteers.
And
I'd be more than happy to provide those for you for the show notes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. We'll list them on. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, no, there are people that volunteer their time, and or there are other things that, obviously you get the help you need, or you're worth it. You're priceless. So you pay for whatever help you need. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I just think that we need to honor our biology, that we do need sleep and rest and fun and healthy food, and not just, and please enjoy the journey. I think that is the key, yeah, just enjoy the journey. It's there's no rush. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll have a lot of links in the show notes because we've talked a lot of good resources. So thanks for sharing so many things. And thank you for your hard work and all the important work that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time. This has been fun.
Oh, it is fun. Okay. Stay well.